of our call. Today we're talking about running a challenge group that pops. I couldn't think of a better name than that, but I think you guys know what I mean. There are sometimes, well, first of all, this happens to everyone, that you have those challenge groups where maybe it starts off strong, maybe a bunch of people are really excited to start, but maybe about week 2, you're kind of the only person who's posting in the group anymore. And, maybe you and like that one other person, and it's crickets, and you feel like, what's going on? Why aren't people engaging? Why aren't people, why aren't they excited about this? Why are they not seeing results? What am I doing wrong? So if you feel like your challenge groups may be lacking a little bit of engagement or a little bit of excitement, these are just some tips that I've gathered over my time as a coach. Some of them I've been doing for a while. Some of them I just started because I'm always learning and I'm always wanting to make it better. And I found them to be really, really helpful. And the reason why it's so important to run amazing challenge groups, or the best challenge groups you can, is because that is really the heart of what we do. And that's really where we get to interact with people on that individual basis, where we really get to mentor them and where we really get to pour into them and where we really get to see that transformation. And before I go into all the tips that I have 10 tips for you. Just a few things to keep in mind as I go through these tips. First, 10 tips is a lot, and I have listened to calls on challenge groups in the past and have gotten so excited and wanted to implement all 10 things all at once and gotten overwhelmed. And so my advice to you would be, jot down the tips that really stand out to you, that you really are the most excited about, and really try to keep it to maybe like 1 or 2 things that you're going to implement in your next group. And then if you want, save 1 or 2 things maybe for the next month's group, so that you are giving yourself realistic expectations and realistic activities to do, because some of these tips do require a little extra work. Some of them do require, setting up a point system if you're going to do a competition in your team or in your groups. And I'll talk about that later. Or, they require extra time to follow up personally with every person in your group, which is one of my tips that you could possibly do. So if you try to implement them all at once, it's going to be a little bit much. So don't take this as like a list of you have to do it all tomorrow, but just think of it as these are some helpful things, and latch on to a few that you think you want to implement in your next group. The next thing I wanted to just make sure that I mention before I get into the tips is that, yes, it is our responsibility to run the best group possible and pour as much into these groups as we can and just make them fantastic. But what is not your responsibility is what your challengers do in the group and do with these groups that you've put together. I have found myself taking too much responsibility, taking too much to heart, that like my challenger's success or failure rests on me. And that's just not true. It rests on them. And I want to create an environment that is the most friendly, that is the most conducive, that is the most nurturing for my challengers. And that I can do, but I cannot do the work for them. I cannot battle their inner demons for them. And if people do not, you're always going to have a few who just don't engage, who it's not the right time for them, or who don't see the best results because they're not ready yet. And I like to see my interactions with people as, everyone has their journey, and I'm coming in at one step of their journey. And maybe I'm coming in at the end step, and they've gone through all these things, and I'm coming in right at the end, and they're totally ready, and they jump in, and they have amazing results. And that's so rewarding. But maybe for some people, I'm coming in near the beginning of their journey. They're not quite fully ready yet, but I'm contributing to one of the steps that is moving them towards that end step where everything clicks and it becomes that habit and becomes that lifestyle change that they want it to. You know, you're still doing good in their life. You're still being that positive voice, even if you don't see even if you don't see all of your challengers just being rock stars and totally committed. You may be entering their life at a different step in their journey than the very last step. So just control what you can control, do your best at what you're called to do, and bless and release for all of the rest. Okay, so having said all that, let's get into our tips. So my first tip for running amazing challenge groups is you have to set expectations from the very beginning. Here are some ways that I do it, because people process information in a variety of ways, and will have a variety of types of personalities in your groups. So I make a welcome video, and I always post that at the beginning of all of my groups. I basically share what they can expect from me and what I expect from them. And this just helps make things very clear. This is what I am going to do for you. I'm going to provide you with meal plans. I'm going to provide you with daily encouragement and assignments. I'm going to provide you with accountability every single day. And I'm going to be here every single day. And I'm going to check in on you at least once throughout the 3-week challenge. But, and I've had this happen before, some people expect more from me than is really possible. I am not able to personally call or personally text every single person in my group at the different wake-up times that they want a wake-up call. I'm not a wake-up call service. I will not, create a custom meal plan for every single person in my group. I will provide you with several samples, but and I don't say all of that in my groups. I don't tell people what I won't do for them, but by telling them what I will do and what they can expect from me, it kind of helps to just set in their minds like, okay, this is what she's going to do for me, and this is kind of what I need to do for myself. Because I found myself trying to bend over backwards and trying to do wake-up calls for everyone in my group, and they're all in different time zones, and they're all at different times, and it's just a stress on me as a coach, and this should be a business that is life-giving, not life-draining. And it's also unrealistic, and at some point, you're not serving your challengers if you're doing all the work for them. Because at some point, they have to make the decision that this is something they need to do for themselves. So part of me being a good coach is not holding their hand too much. So you always want that balance between supporting and being there, and yet not being a crutch or just like this doing everything for them and making it like they don't have to put in any effort, because that's just not how fitness works in general. So I make it very clear what the expectations are. I also post a list of rules. So I do it through a video, and then I do it through a written post. And a lot of times I'm saying the same thing. But guys, let me tell you, sometimes you have to say the same thing like 5 or 6 times before it actually sinks in, or people actually read it or actually watch the video. So repeating yourself, saying it in different ways, saying it in different formats is always the best to make sure that you're getting your information across. And then don't be afraid to require things. You are a coach. You make the rules, and you're doing it for their good. You're doing it because you know what they need to do to make this a success. So before, I would say things like, it's probably a good idea if you make a meal plan to help you through your week. How many people actually put in the work to do their meal plan when I explained it like that? Barely anybody, maybe no one. Now I tell them, this is not half the work or half the whatever. This is the whole thing. Either you make a meal plan or you don't succeed in this program. Either you know what you're eating and fill your house with those foods, or you will not succeed in this program. I am very much more strong and not afraid to require, you must tell me that you've made a meal plan before we begin this challenge, because I know what works. My challengers who have never done this before, they don't know how important it is. I've been doing this for 2 years. If I don't make a meal plan, I don't eat well that week. And when I make a meal plan, I eat well. So I know I'm the coach. I've gone through it. I need to share my experience and my knowledge and my wisdom. And I need to not be afraid to require it because I want to set them up for success. I want to set them up to not be discouraged after week 1. I want them to have that meal plan and have all the tools that they need to be amazing, right? That's part of my job. So don't be afraid. You're the coach to require things. I require a before photo. I have just recently begun to require an introduction video, which I'm going to talk about later. And I require that they have a meal plan at least for the first week. I probably should require it every week, but I only really require it for that first week because I'm hoping that they'll see and then it'll just continue on in the next weeks. So that's just what I do. Some other coaches that I know, there's actually like a challenger checklist where they can check off each day, whether they did their workout, whether they had a positive, did some positive readings or whatever. I did that for one of my challenge groups, and then it was really hard for me personally to keep up with all of the checklists. So I kind of dropped that, but that's an option. If you want to have a checklist and you require every end of the week that people show you a picture of it. So you can kind of check like, hey, how many days did you actually work out? How many days this or that? Again, you're the coach. Require what you feel like is necessary for your challengers to see success. All right, so that's tip number 1, set expectations. Tip number 2 is require video introductions. And this is kind of following that last part. I just started doing this. A success partner of mine has been doing this for forever. And she mentioned it to me and I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. And I love it because one of the things that I noticed is that in my challenge groups where there was a lot of interaction, usually it was because 1 or 2 of my challengers really opened up and really became vulnerable. And everyone in the group got to really connect and got to know those people. And then everyone in the group started sharing more vulnerably. And the connections between the members of the group started to get stronger because they started to build relationships with one another. It was more than just, oh, I did my PIO today. Oh, here's my Shakeology. Oh, here's what I'm eating. It was like, guys, this is what happened today in my life. My kid did this. My husband did that. I'm really stressed. I'm going to get my workout done later, but can you please pray for me, or I need some encouragement or whatever. Like when 1 or 2 challengers broke that ice and got vulnerable, that group was the best because everybody felt connected. Everyone felt emotionally invested. So I can't predict that or create that on my own, but what I can do is require video introductions, which does help to create more of a connection between my challengers. They can see each other's faces. Even me, that I've had usually lots of conversations with everyone in these groups because I've gotten to know them before they even bought their challenge pack. But even me, seeing that video of them, hearing their voice, seeing their face, seeing their little kids pop their heads in, and then pop out, like it endeared me to the people in my group so quickly and so much better. And so now this has become a new requirement for my groups. And I do believe that it helps people be more invested emotionally into the group because you're not just checking in to share what you did. You're checking in to see how Jerry did or how Jennifer did or how, Savannah did, because you kind of feel like you actually know them now. It's not just a random, whatever. Like I used to do a little introduction with words, which I still do, but that can only tell you so much of the story. Seeing that video is really big. So that's my second tip is do video introductions. Have your challengers share their face, their voice, their life with each other, and you will have a much better group. Number 3 is let your own personality come through in the challenge group. And don't be afraid to break the mold of what your upline did. And this is something that has been a little bit hard for me because, especially if you have a really strong upline who has a really great script, it's so easy to just lean on them and do what they did. But when I would talk with other coaches and hear some of the things they were doing, and I was like, wow, that is so different, but it really shows their personality, and so it really works well for them. So here are just some examples of what other people do, in case all you know is your uplines groups, and you may be thinking, I don't know if this is really my personality. So there's this one coach, he's a guy actually, he doesn't do any assignments at all, but he checks in every day, and he usually does like a ton of funny memes, like the grumpy cat, or, just like all sorts of like really ridiculous, hilarious, little funny videos. Sometimes he'll ask his challengers to share funny YouTube workout videos, or, just pasting their face on like a ridiculous meme. And he really like just makes it really fun and hilarious, and people love it. And they come back every single day because it's like their little pick me up. And of course, people are also checking in with their workouts. Just because he doesn't have assignments doesn't mean that people aren't, using the group for accountability. But that's his personality, and and his groups are amazing. The way that I like to do mine, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with mine. I like to do a mixture of assignments and education. I like to have assignments, but I also like to have days where I'm just educating my group on different things. Like today, for example, I was educating them on emotional eating and why we eat when we're stressed and what we can do to combat that. And so that's just kind of like what I love to do. I love to teach people, and so that's my style. Some other coaches, they like to do like competitions within their groups, and they'll separate everyone in the group into a different team, and they'll assign point systems to different things like checking in, posting a video, posting a photo. And at the end, the team that has the most points wins like a little prize. So that's, those are just a few ideas of what some coaches do, but just to help you think a little bit outside of the box of what you may have kind of come up under, whatever your coach did above you, knowing that you can really make it your own and you don't have to follow the same mold. It might help you to be more energized to run your groups when you feel more comfortable with the way that it is, because it's your personality. And your team or your challengers will feel that energy. If you're really excited and energized about your group, your team will feel. If you're just going through the motions, your challengers are going to feel that too. So don't be afraid to infuse and break free from what you were used to and do something that just feels more like you. All right, so tip number 4 is do recognition for your challengers. I don't know if you guys have heard, but recognition is now the 4th vital behavior. There have always been 3 vital behaviors, and now we have recognition as our 4th. So some really fun things you can do. Recognition is really fun, and it is so freaking powerful for people to be recognized for their efforts. You can recognize people for having checked in 5 days in a row, or having done their workouts 5 days in a row. And one of my coaches, she made like on Canva, just like a little like golden seal. And it was like, I forget what she put, like a week-long winner or something like that for all of her challengers who worked out 7 days in a row. And she posted, it was like this big shiny gold badge, and she actually posted it on their timeline publicly in Facebook. And she was like, so-and-so just earned the week-long warrior badge. She worked out 7 days in a row, and I'm so proud of her. And just that little badges, little shout outs in the group or publicly, or even prizes. Some coaches, they'll get little workout gear or little like water bottles, whatever, things that can just motivate and make your challengers feel special and appreciated, that their work is being rewarded and recognized. That is amazing. So that's my tip number 4, is do recognition. Tip number 5 is to check in personally with your with your challengers. I find that not everyone has that personality where they thrive in that group setting. And that's totally fine. A lot of them still enjoy being in the group. They love watching everyone else's posts. It's very motivating to them, but they just don't like to post in the groups. And so I don't want them to feel left out. And I also like to know what's going on with them. Did they fall off, or are they going strong and they just don't like posting in the groups? So I make sure to check in personally with a private message to every single person in my group at least once in my 3-week challenges. Ideally, I would do it every week, but I at least once, usually in the second week, I check in just, how's it going? How are you liking your Shakeology? Is there anything happening with your program that's been confusing for you? Are you, you'd be surprised that people don't speak up sometimes when they are experiencing difficulties that could be so easily remedied just by you giving them a few tips. And so I never want someone like that to fall through the cracks. So I always make sure that I check in with them midway through my groups. This is also a great time to, if they're loving it, if they're doing great, and even if they are posting in the group every day, I still check in personally just to see how everything's going. And it's a great time to mention the Shakeology discount to them. If they are loving everything and they want to upgrade to the coach account, you can kind of start that conversation as you're checking in with them midway through the challenge. And it's also a great way, if you do have some rockstar challengers, to just encourage them personally of what a great job they're doing, and ask them if they've ever considered coaching or if they'd be interested in learning more about it. So that's something that I just offer to every single person in my challenge groups, the opportunity to turn this into a business for themselves, or at least get a discount. And then also just to help me know where they're at and make sure that I'm connecting with them on a personal level. So that's tip number 5. And that can really make a difference for someone who maybe wasn't very interactive. Just getting that little note from you and encouragement from you can help them to jump back in and jump back on the wagon. All right. Tip number 6 is be a participant. So don't just be the leader of the group, but be in the trenches with your challengers. You check in every day with your workout, and you check in every day with your Shakeology, and you check in every day with the assignment, whatever it might be. If it's a drinking water challenge, post your picture of how many ounces of water you drank that day. Like, don't just require something of your challengers that you're not doing yourself, and make sure that they see that you're doing it with them. That is very powerful. Just being that example and that inspiration. And then, it's also a great opportunity for you to share, about Shakeology a little bit more, about the recipes that you're using and how you like to make it. So many people make it wrong. They stir it with a spoon with water. They don't add ice. And, you'd be shocked at how sometimes just posting a picture of you like blending it up can make someone be like, oh, I never thought to blend it. And then, you're just helping people along by your example and by just living it out. So be a participant. Number 7 is, I always make sure that I post about the Shakeology discount or my coach sneak peek. If I'm running a coach sneak peek, I always make sure to mention it in my challenge groups, because these are people who are already doing the program, who are already experiencing that culture and the positive effects of it. And so I just make it a habit. Every single group, I am mentioning either the discount or a sneak peek. All right, tip number 8. And I kind of talked about this at the beginning. Don't take it personally when people drop off, or those people who are always sending you negative messages, who are always complaining about how they didn't do well today, or they fell off the wagon today, or, they're just not connecting in the group, or, there's always going to be people who are going to send you messages 5 or 6 times a week telling you everything that is wrong with the group and wrong with the program and why it's not working for them, and just those negative people. And those people, and then on the other side, those people who just like ignore your messages and aren't participating in the group, and, you know, just learn to reach out and be positive and then move on and not take it personally. And this is really, really hard for me, guys. I really struggle with it. Sometimes it even keeps me up at night. I'll think of like specific people and I'm just like, oh, why? Like, I never even heard back from them. Like, what even happened to them? Like, I was so excited to work with them. And I just, because I really, like, literally every story that I hear, every person that I talk to, like, I take it so deeply and I want success for them so badly. And it really is hard for me when people drop off, but I've had to learn to just, to let it go, to know that I did my best, that I did my part. And when they're ready, they can come back to me. And if they're not, then they're not, you know? And so just letting it go is just really going to be helpful if you are that same type of person that can really struggle when you don't see people responding or engaging. And then tip number 9, ask for testimonials at the end. How has this group impacted your life? How has this group changed you? Not just how many pounds did you lose, but what habits did you gain? What kind of thoughts did you think about your body before, and what do you think about your body now? That not only helps you as a coach, as that little boost of like, oh my gosh, people are like changing and learning and growing. It helps everyone in the group to see that they're not alone and that other people are having their lives changed as well. And also, you can offer prizes to people and be like, hey, write your testimony. If I decide to use it and share publicly as part of, you know, just to share like what's going on in my groups, I'll send you whatever, a sample of the new cafe latte Shakeology, or whatever prize, a cookbook, something that you want to give away. So that way people are aware that you want to share this publicly, and usually they're flattered that you would want to share their testimony publicly. Some people are a little more private, but and then it also gives them an incentive to want to share their testimony, because sometimes people are, you know, they just don't get around to it, and then they hold it in, and you never know how you've changed their life, and that's really powerful. Number 10 is to encourage your challengers to share their journey publicly. I don't do this in every group, and I should. I don't know why I don't do this in every group, but I typically encourage my challengers to go public with their journey at the very beginning of the group. I encourage them to share on Facebook what they're doing, that they're starting this new journey, that they're really excited, that they're a little nervous, whatever it is. And I tell them to do that because it will keep them accountable to their friends and family, and it will help them to feel the support from their community, because more often than not, people are going to comment on that post and say, good for you. I'm so glad you're doing this. I can't wait to hear how it goes. And so it really does, like, to know that your network and your community is behind you and encouraging you is a really powerful thing. And then it also, if they have any sort of thought in the back of their mind of maybe coaching, maybe doing this as a coach, they've already begun to share their journey publicly. And it becomes very natural, if they decide to become a coach, to shift into, okay, guys, remember how I told you I was doing this journey? Here's how it's changed my life. And does anybody want to do it with me on my next round? And it kind of helps them to like dip their toes into that habit or that power that you have when you start inspiring others. They begin to feel what that feels like. And for a lot of my challengers, they really are shocked and amazed at the impact that they have on other people's lives. And they haven't even started coaching, but just me encouraging them to go public with their journey really helps them and really gives them a lot of confidence. So that's it. Those are my 10 tips for helping your challenge groups just pop and be these amazing places of encouragement and energy and motivation. I hope that you are able to take a few tips and that it will be helpful for you in your challenge groups. Again, this is just such an important thing that we do, really the basis of everything that we do. Most of my coaches were challengers first. And if you are not investing and doing a good job of running great challenge groups, you are going to have a difficult time building your business. And so and you're not going to feel like you're really making that impact that you want to make. So I want you guys to have those groups that just fill your heart, that are just full of great people and that are really exciting and fun places to be. So that's it.